Thank you for showing up in such big numbers. I didn't expect that, actually. But I tried to be pretty concise and try to deliver to you actually more than 60 slides in 25 minutes. So please be patient with me. So where I'm coming from and why this talk is going to be slightly more opinionated than you would expect is that I'm doing startups for 20 years now, of that almost 10 years data. And I had all these kind of funny hats, bit of a business, bit of an engineering, bit of a data science-y things. And I did very different industries like productivity, e-commerce, you can name it. And I realized that most of the time I was actually a data janitor. Like, I think you are all data janitors somewhere because you just move boxes from A to B and try to fix draining pipes all the time. So this perspective can be called slightly cynical, but I would say that I'm very open to any kind of feedback. The whole thing started here at the Data Natives Conference 2 years ago. Actually, it was in Moabit, when I had the luck to give a keynote about the data janitorship in general, and I received so much information, cries and prayers for you while I was delivering this talk in different locations throughout the world that I came up with this kind of sequel, I'd say. So this is not a complete understanding, but I definitely call it rounded. And yes, I am slow, old, stupid, and lazy. So whenever I look at things, I think the most used word for me is benchmarks. Let's see how it goes. If you just go through this, you can really walk away. I'm not going to be talking about rocket surgery here. I'm trying to talk about like simple things. I'll try to walk around a bit so everybody can see parts of the screen. So really, don't try to overcomplicate things. I'd say that this is all trivial to deliver what you need to do your stuff. And I think that the important part is getting like here. It's like this was added like in the last years that if you can figure what you have to do and what you don't have to do, you're already in a good place. It doesn't matter what kind of technology you use or so. And it seems like that we have this identity crisis. That you believe that you are Google, or you will become Google in some days while you are not. So whenever you make choices, if you keep in mind the two last sentences, I think you'll be pretty okay. And when I was talking about this topic 2 years ago, I called out the hype, the bullshit that's out there in the market. And now I'm calling out that, we are very, very important people. They try to sell us stuff. They want to have our money and our data, and this should be logged in some kind of system. Just because something is open source, it doesn't mean that you're not logged into that system, okay? Always do your double checks on this one. Typically, I hear people worry about these things, conferences about deep learning and stuff, and GDPR, the Y2K for us, it passed by, we're fine, thank you. Well, I think you should be worrying about different things, which are not that sexy maybe, like ad blockers, how to make proper ELT systems, like so extract, load, and transform later. And yes, CRM is super unsexy. If you know any vendor out there in the market who solved CRM, talk to me. I'm trying to buy like a working CRM system for ages. Guilty as charged, we built one once, so I learned the hard way that you shouldn't do that, but anyway. A lovely lady called Monica Rogati, she used to be like a VP at Jawbone and then become VC, went to the right universities, came up with this lovely diagram, I would say. And my previous step was structured in a way that in which order do data-related roles appear in an organization. Now it's more like kind of function-based. So let's see how data-related functionality appears in a company. As you could easily guess, if you start to build this hierarchical pyramid, the Maslow pyramid of data, you start here, in the middle, with business intelligence. You got the beans, you have to count the beans, you have a lot of beans, and I'd say that the bad parts start to happen when the BI analyst forgets about the golden rule that if you start counting beans, you should understand what are the beans you're counting. So really have to do your homework, have to dig deep into your business processes and technologies to know what are the entities you're talking about. Second, You have to come up with KPI definitions that are programmatic. So if you get asked by your investor or board or whoever that how on earth did you came up with that number 6 months ago, you should be able to reproduce this number in some way. And also when you start, arguing about KPIs, it shouldn't be like, poets and drama writers talking to each other, but like exact things. Always look at the data. Okay? If you tell me what's the average of something, you're fired on spot. If you start to talk about median, I say, okay, you're nice, but please look at distributions. Look at the distributions all the time. Look at your data to see if there's something strange. In this phase, typically you can survive with a bunch of open source tools, be them Python, an almost English readable language, Postgres, I think it's okay, and even Metabase. If you're like a 1, 2, 3 person team, Metabase can be good for you. Still, I have like, I think, open bug reports with them for 1.5 years, so nothing is perfect. Still, for the money, it's okay. Usual suspect, one thing that typically sneaks in at this phase, NPS. Who have Net Promoter Score at the company? Thank you. So this is something that business likes because it's a number. You can look at it, it can go up and it can go down. Too bad it doesn't make any sense, okay? The sampling way you get this number is skewed. The answer is like unsure, like, it's like 8 or 10 or 7, you don't know. And from a mathematical perspective, it's super easy to hack this function. If you look up these people's blog posts, you can see, even find R code, how to hack your NPS score. So if you get some feedback from management that NPS is bad, you can fix it. Google Analytics, my favorite enemy at the end of the level. Typically, people start to use this thing and then come again to the poems and the dramas, like same random dots, how do you interpret them? You actually have this snap interface when you know that the data is wrong, but people really like it because you can click around and stuff. Hero of the day, sorry for the big image, he's around somewhere. Martin's working for Project A Ventures here in Berlin. Every year they try to help 20, 30 companies, not just with money, but also operational excellence. So he sees how to build BI again and again and again in different companies. He's got these funny presentations. I think the second one actually was told at Data Natives, maybe last year. Look into it. It's fun. Even if you're not in e-commerce, the KPIs could help you. And least but not least, they have a GitHub repo where they have an ETL set up. That could be good for you if you are small enough, less than 10 million users. It's free, open, makes sense. Good. So we got, the middle part. Where should we go? Down or up? Definitely up. We can now start A/B testing, as everybody does. I'm also a believer still, but I'd say that I completely agree with this guy who's much smarter than me and works at Microsoft, still smarter, that, that's it. Dan McKinley was talking here about A/B test. He was a very kind person. I'm more bold, okay? Why shouldn't you do A/B test? First, it's complicated. You're going to fuck it up, okay? Second, you don't have enough traffic or volume or samples what you make. 3, out of 10 cases, 9, you will not see any lift. If you multiply these 3 numbers together, that's it. Number from the Booking.com guy. So if you are typically in e-commerce and you want to see a small lift in your conversion rate, these are typical numbers, then you have to have running this experiment of 12 million users. So if you're big enough, do it. But again, as Dan McKinney told, it's not that easy, and you have to keep a lot of things in mind, and most likely it's about process, less about data. And at this phase, when you start doing these things, R is seeping into the company, and all the people from the computer science department is getting crazy that you don't deploy R code in production because it's going to be bad for you. But still, you do it. And again, I have to admit that the thing called Shiny is a super good and easy way to ship data products to your company from inside typically, because you can do front-end, back-end computation in the same frame of mind. You don't have to change languages. What you need, Python and JavaScript and SQL to deliver, you can do all it in Shiny. Do it. It's fun. Not really, but still the simplest way to deliver data applications. Usually suspects what happened here also. bad things sleep into the organization. Non-reproducible experiments and tests. I think it's a common theme that we keep repeating. A lot of implicits in the models. You have to be explicit if you want to revise something later or even kind of put it into production, then it's going to be kind of hard. Now we're starting to build, go up and up. Where should we go? Definitely more upwards, because deep learning is the thing that everybody should do these days. Okay, this slide is from Karpati. You can't see it here, but so yes, that's true that if you're actually working for Tesla, and most likely you're not Tesla, so you don't have that much data, you still worry about that you need more data. So it's like red is data sets, what you're about, models and algorithms. Data sets, models and algorithms. So you have to have a lot of data to be able to make meaningful machine learning, and more like if you want deep learning models in production. You can cheat this because you can make your own data points. I see it more and more coming that data departments actually building some end-user applications, convince users to use it, to collect interaction, to collect data points, to collect measurements, because it's easier to ship an iOS app that does some fun than to get data from your common data repository. 2 years ago, the most things we were worrying about that data scientists have to do, like a lot of data cleansing and preparation and whatnot. These days, the main pain is Kubernetes and Docker. I don't think that you should really worry about how to put your things into production. And actually, this whole thing gave life to a new type of software that you can buy, the data science platform. Some of them are actually working, but again, it's not really meant for data in terms of like you're not trying to do some stateless, single-threaded microservice, but you're actually trying to do something that's stateful, computation-heavy, and different things. What's happening with deep learning? Okay, I was happy and sad at the same time when I've seen this blog post. This is a header of a blog post that will compression the machine learning killer app. This blog post was written by Pete Warden, who I really admire. He's leading the TensorFlow efforts of Google on mobile, and if he can't come up with anything better than compressing porn on your end device as the use case for deep learning, I think we're in trouble. But really, if you really have to do deep learning, which I doubt, then still I think TensorFlow is a good choice. It's like industrialized version. You can run it from DSPs to TPUs. It has a proper ecosystem of tooling, and it's not just like a PR open source project from Google, but something that they actually use. It's a good choice. My hero of the day in this section is Szilárd, the deeper than deep learning, who's doing a data science meetup in LA. He does a lot of good for humanity with running benchmarks on different machine learning softwares. Pretty good, look into it. And also he gave recently a lot of talks about how to do that gradient boosting machines in a decent way, like how to do machine learning for the monies, okay? Something that really works. I couldn't stand getting this slide from his presentation because, I mean, it's like, okay, let's use this thing called Spark. But why it is like 10 times faster and needs like 10 times more resources to deliver the same things? Like, who uses this thing? Like, why should I use this? It's slower than my laptop. I kind of agree with him that some kind of winter could be coming, so this whole self-driving car thing is not really happening, or like, even those robotics companies who actually do robots, they do fail, so like hardcore shipping things. I would say that if you're a data scientist these days, it wouldn't hurt if you get some more engineering skills. So we got the top covered. Now we may actually could start to build the foundations of this hierarchy. Typically at this given moment, somebody said, oh, we need a data engineer. Let's get a data engineer on board. That's me, real life. I'm not kidding. But we have to do it, and again, a bit of a reflection of some cultural sensitivity that, and he did some software. But on the other hand, this is also true of us, of all of us engineers, is that, if you're just shoveling some shit for enough time, after a while, we just try to put another abstraction layer on top of it so nobody sees it. Kind of related also to Docker and Kubernetes. Anyway, this is a ferry in Germany. This is a ferry. I'm repeating it. This is the major problem we have in engineering is we try to overcomplicate things. And always, and most of the time, we manage to do that. My mentor told me that distributed computing is not a solved problem. And again, I have to say it loud. If you learn how to use one computer, then you can have another. Okay? Keep it in mind. That's the way it goes. Data engineer is someone who embraces dirty reality, who knows the falsehoods about names, times, places, and all these things, which typical back-end engineers don't really care. And again, my advice is to try to get cloud agnostic because that's the rage. Most of the companies are migrating to GCP because it's technically free for now. Everybody's trying to get them on board. AWS is still kind of okay. Azure got more money in the last year than AWS, enterprise clients. And again, ETL is not really solved. I learned the hard way again that not every star on GitHub born the same. So if you think that Airflow is a decent piece of software, I have good news for you. It's not. There is hope. There is hope. Things shouldn't be that complicated. And again, there are different projects, different tools for different goals. If you have a lot of sources, use a different one. If you have a simple thing, use Mara, I mentioned from Berlin. Or if you use, I know, these two I was kind of co-authoring. Again, it's not like a silver bullet, but maybe you can survive without tearing your hair off. This is going to be like kind of fast because we don't have much time, but you will get the slides. This guy is running benchmarks. Huh? I mentioned this thing, benchmarks. He's running benchmarks on all these funny big data-ish things with a semi-big data set running SQL-like queries. Spark. What we learned about Spark based on this data is that you have to use HDFS if you want to have like some really serious throughput. We also learned, because he deployed Spark on Raspberry Pis, that one vCPU on Amazon is like 1/6 of a Raspberry Pi, and it kind of linearly scales. Still, the sweet spot for running these queries was when he used one machine, okay? So TCP/IP is costly. Doesn't make sense to use that much. Presto, another favorite workhorse. Again, you have to use HDFS if you want to have throughput. It doesn't scale linearly. That's the bad news. So if you keep adding machines, it will best performing sweet spot again when you have one machine, like lazy evaluation, like Redshift, BigQuery, what you can buy in the market, what you can hire in the market, like Athena, Presto, 50 machine, Spark 11 machine, Emma 3x large. I think it's still viable to rent these services if you can pay it. What can you do with one machine? Okay, here comes the Slavic programmer. Again, ClickHouse running on a laptop. Okay, Intel Core i5, 32 vCPUs kind of. Costs like 600 euros. It's slightly faster than the sweet spot of Presto, Spark. And actually, it's funny that you can use Elasticsearch for these kind of things. Look into these numbers, it makes sense. It will save you a lot of money and time. Do you use adblocking? Great. Do you use Google Analytics? That's a good one. I'm really happy for you. So again, at least 9% of the front-end events get lost in all third-party trackers. Good luck doing your A/B tests. This is small on intention because we're trying to roll out a very, very lightweight setup that you might be able to reuse if you want to track business events from the front end, from the back end. This is like an AWS setup, but nothing crazy in here, with the least amount of code written because I like to delete code. That's my hobby. And again, you can run SQL in flat files. If you can stay within minimum amount of machines, if you don't overcomplicate for your life with distributed machines and Docker and Kubernetes, you can be pretty okay. Great. Did we cover everything? If the organization gets to this point that we have, the miners down there, we have all the computational wizards and stuff, then it might happen that actually there's going to be like a head of data, like who rules this empire. And it's really interesting to see that how it changes. Like, you can be like the one who just like delivers the numbers for an already made decision. You can actually deliver numbers that will make somebody a king. And again, it's not a very nice role to have because that's what you do every day. They come up with some ideas and they say, no. Or can I quote my friend here, saying like, machine says no. So like, it's like that. And again, your major and most important task is not believing the hype. And the hiring part didn't get better in the last 2 years, I think. So good people leave, definitely. And everybody is still looking for the eierlegende Wollmilchsau. I'm not really German, but there's this very specific mythical animal that you can, it produces milk, it produces wool, you can eat its meat, and I think it's pretty useful, I think. Eierlegende. Okay, thank you. Most of the tension, I still feel that is happening with marketing, because again, attribution and tracking is not that simple. So if they come to you after they spent like 200 euros on a bot farm that you can come up with attribution, you could say then it's not possible. Again, you have to keep educating them that it's super hard to figure what's happening out there because they overdid their job a bit, slightly. All the CPA silverbullets are gone. Like everybody's trying to sell and buy the same marketplaces. These big guys are not your friends. I mean, last time I've seen, Facebook was overstating the video views with like 900%. What? Like not 2% or like 35, 900, okay? So you should do your own bean counting on this one, I presume. And again, maybe, you know, as you look at the NASDAQ and these funny numbers going down, you should start to be really thinking about your already existing customers, okay? CRM is your friend. GDPR. I think if you didn't do serious evil stuff, it was not that hard, okay? It's more like a process, again, than some kind of a very technical issue. So I am happy that we have it in Europe. I would be happy if everybody would have it in the US and everywhere else. And if you're into the business of programmatic advertisements, maybe you should think about getting a new job. Thank you. We are hiring, and I think if you have any questions, I'm at the AMA.